Sophia and James met during a sunny spring afternoon at a local park in Chicago. Sophia, a cheerful kindergarten teacher, adored children and had a warm smile that made everyone feel comfortable. She had a passion for art, often spending her weekends painting or visiting galleries. James, a quiet but kind software developer, was easy to laugh and appreciated the small things in life. His love for technology matched Sophia's creativity perfectly, and their unique qualities balanced one another beautifully. From their first conversation, there was an instant spark. Sophia was drawn to James's inner strength, while James admired Sophia's joyful outlook on life. They shared stories, exchanged smiles, and discovered common interests like their love for good coffee and classic movies. As they spent more time together, their bond deepened. They enjoyed late-night talks about their dreams and shared their fears. Sophia listened to James's stories of growing up, while James learned about the challenges Sophia faced in her classroom. This emotional connection laid a strong foundation for their relationship. Yet, like all couples, they faced the possibility of challenges. Both carried emotional baggage from past relationships, which sometimes made them hesitate to open up fully. Sophia had difficulty trusting others because of a heartbreak, while James often worried about not being good enough. Although they could see their potential future together, they both felt a twinge of uncertainty about how to move their relationship to the next level. As weeks turned into months, Sophia and James enjoyed many moments together. However, signs of trouble were starting to emerge for Sophia. She often found herself feeling distant from James, as if there was an invisible wall between them. It began on one ordinary afternoon. They sat on the couch, James busy on his laptop, coding a new project. Sophia was right there in the same room but felt miles away. She tried to talk to him about her day, sharing stories about her students and the art projects they were working on. Yet, James barely looked away from the screen. He would nod and smile, but Sophia could sense his mind was elsewhere. As days passed, the feeling grew stronger. Sophia felt alone, even when she was beside him. When she tried to express how she felt, James would often reassure her. "I'm really just focused, Sophia. I want to do well at my job." His voice was warm, but the choice of words left her feeling even more isolated. She questioned whether he cared as much about their relationship as he did about his work. This confusion began building a sense of frustration in her heart. Meanwhile, James noticed that Sophia was quieter than usual. He could see the worry in her eyes, but he didn't quite understand what was wrong. "Why are you so distant?" he finally asked one evening. Sophia paused, considering her words. "I just feel, I don't know, left out sometimes. Like I'm not really a part of your life anymore," she revealed, her voice trembling gently with doubt. She wanted him to understand, hoping he could see the loneliness that settled in when he was too distracted. James frowned, and a moment of silence hung in the air. Instead of comforting her, his hands tensed around the laptop. "But that's crazy, Sophia. You know I care about you so much," he replied, struggling to find the right words. The undertone of his response sounded defensive, and Sophia felt her heart sink further at his reaction. Misunderstanding whipped around them like an unwelcome guest, pulling them deeper into discomfort. "I just wish you would listen more," Sophia said softly, hoping her gentle tone would ease the tension. But James, feeling confused and a bit hurt, met her gaze, eyes searching. "I am listening. I'm just trying to get things done, and I thought you understood that," he explained, frustration creeping into his voice. This was not the conversation Sophia had hoped for. The warmth of their earlier deep discussions dissipated quickly, replaced with cold uncertainty. Feeling the pressure of unspoken emotions, Sophia stood up from the couch, needing space. She tried to gather her thoughts. Why couldn't things be easy between them? James watched her walk away, a worried frown knitting on his brow. He felt a mix of confusion and guilt, the knot in his stomach tightening. Unable to ignite the courage to reach out, he remained seated, unsure how to reconnect with the woman he loved. As both partners reflected silently on their thoughts and emotions, the place where love and understanding once flourished now felt heavy with unfulfilled expectations. The future they envisioned together dimmed with each unvoiced fear, creating an ache inside both their hearts. Would they be able to navigate through these struggles and find a way back to each other? Or would this emotional disconnection set them further apart? Only time would tell. As Sophia and James navigated their worries, a new challenge emerged that put even more strain on their relationship. One of James's co-workers, Mia, often joined him for lunch and often praised his work. At first, Sophia brushed it off as harmless. After all, James had many friends at work, and she trusted him. However, doubts crept into her mind. Whenever her phone buzzed with a message from James saying he was working late again, she couldn't help but wonder if he was spending extra time with Mia. The recurring thought triggered a flicker of jealousy deep within her, and she struggled to keep it contained. One chilly evening, James came home later than usual. He had been at a team meeting, but Sophia's mind ran wild with imaginations of him laughing with Mia over dinner. When James entered their apartment carrying a pizza, a small smile lit his face, but Sophia felt cold. "You're late," she said, trying to sound casual, but James could hear the tension hidden in her words. "I'm sorry. We finished up a little later than expected," he replied, setting the pizza on the table. "Want to eat?" Sophia hesitated, her heart racing. She wanted to be happy and supportive, but instead, her anger boiled. "So, did you have fun?" she asked, a hint of bite in her voice. James looked surprised. "What do you mean?" "It was just work." Sophia's pause felt long and heavy. "It sounded fun to me. Like you had a lunch date with Mia today and then stayed late." "It sounds like you're just too busy for us," Sophia finally admitted, her voice shaking, "and I'm feeling forgotten." James's earlier smile faded, his brow furrowing in concern. "How can you think that? I told you it was work." "You know my job is important," he responded, his voice rising slightly. The lack of trust cut deeper than either of them realized, igniting their shared insecurities. Sophia felt a wave of hurt wash over her. She never wanted to accuse him. "I know that, but it just feels like you and Mia are, I don't know, too close," she suddenly shouted out, each word reverberating in the room like rolling thunder. At that moment, James felt hurt too. "You don't have to be jealous of my friends, Sophia. Can't you just be happy for me?" His frustration poured out, and Sophia felt crushed under the weight of his words. They were like arrows aimed right at her heart. Both of them stood in silence, their breaths heavy, while emotions clashed around them. James's palms felt clammy, and he couldn't shake off the tightening knot in his stomach. He knew showing jealousy wouldn't help, but part of him wanted to tell Sophia how much he valued her. He took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm brewing inside. "I really care about you, Sophia," he finally said, rawness in his voice returning to him. "But we have to talk about these feelings instead of fighting. I don't want to hold back." Sophia felt the tension slowly melt as she saw the sincerity in his eyes. The warmth between them was fragile, but she knew they could mend the first small cracks if they communicated openly. Though these first steps felt heavy, each word from both felt like a tiny wind towards rebuilding what had begun to crumble. Both began to realize that moving forward would require a blend of patience and understanding to weather the waves of their growing emotions and weaknesses together. Would courage change their feelings into strength, or would they stumble back into misunderstanding? Only time would show the answers. One Friday evening, the weight of unresolved emotions finally turned into a storm. Sophia and James returned from separate work events, their hearts heavy with stress, and tensions simmering beneath the surface. James carried a folder filled with reports, while Sophia cradled a bag full of her students' art creations. When they entered the apartment, the air felt thick with unspoken words. The moment they stepped inside, Sophia's dread came rushing to the forefront. While sweaty and tired, James sat down with his reports. Instead of greeting Sophia warmly, he buried himself in numbers and papers again. Sophia felt a punch of disappointment deep in her gut. "James, can we at least talk?" she finally implored, her voice shaky. Yet James raised a finger, urging her to wait, caught up in his work for an additional few minutes. "Can you stop treating your work like it's more important than me?" Sophia said abruptly, the frustration spilling out before she could stop it. James's brow furrowed. "Sophia, I'm doing this for our future. You need to understand that." His eyes flashed with anger, and he set the papers down, focusing on her. "Every time I try to talk, you dismiss me. It's as if you don't care about what I'm going through," Sophia blurted out, her voice rising. Tears of frustration brimmed her eyes. James crossed his arms, defensively. "I do care, but I'm trying to build something for us. Have you ever thought about that? Build something? Or build a wall between us?" Sophia felt her heart race. "You're so focused on work that you barely see me anymore. It feels like I'm competing for your attention with spreadsheets." Each word weaved a tapestry of pain and accusation, yet all she wanted was his connection. James threw his hands up, a mix of confusion and anger clouding his thoughts. "You're making it sound like I want to leave. I'm just trying to have a life." His voice thundered through the small room. "But what life can we have if all you notice is my work?" The louder they grew, the more entangled they became in regretful words, neither wanting to back down. Sophia's tears spilled down her cheeks, her heart aching at how far they had fallen from their sweet beginnings. "You just don't get it, do you? I can't keep feeling like this." The hurt in her voice softened the air around them, but James couldn't hear her from behind his own wall of anger. "Well, maybe we aren't as compatible as you thought," he snapped back, the words piercing the space between them like ice. Both were shocked by the finality of his statement. The hollowness in the room seemed to swallow them. Sophia covered her mouth, horrified as James's words echoed in her mind. The air charged with confusion and hurt created a barrier neither could push through. Each of them felt the intense pressure, consuming their spirits. In that moment, everything felt lost, the laughter they shared, the warmth of their early conversations. A heavy silence settled, filled with raw emotion that spiraled through their hearts. As the argument faded, a sense of emptiness hovered in the air, forcing them to confront a chilling reality. Regret hung heavily over the silence, each had crossed lines they could not unwrite. Would either of them find it within their hearts to backtrack, or was this the tipping point that could change everything? After their intense argument, Sophia sunk onto her bed, her heart heavy with sorrow. As the tears flowed freely, she grabbed her journal from the nightstand, desperate for some relief. With each scratch of the pen, she poured out her thoughts. "Why did I let it go this far?" she wrote. "I don't want to lose him. I miss the laughter and warmth we once had." The ink soaked the page as her regrets spilled out. Sophia remembered how they used to talk for hours, sitting on that same bed, sharing dreams and laughter. Where had those moments gone? Her mind swirled with images of James, his smile replaced with frustration. "I feel misunderstood," she scribbled, wondering if she had been too focused on her own feelings to see his struggles. As she reflected, clarity crept in. She hadn't showed James how much she appreciated his hard work. She realized she had been treating his dedication as a threat rather than a strength. Simultaneously, James sat on the couch, the reports forgotten on the table. He collected his thoughts, replaying the fight in his mind over and over. The memory of Sophia's tears haunted him, stinging with regret. Feeling overwhelmed, he picked up his phone and dialed his sister, Clara. Her comforting voice filled the air, providing some much-needed support. "What's going on, James?" she asked softly, sensing his turmoil. "I messed up, Clara. I yelled at Sophia. It's like we can't communicate anymore," he admitted between sighs. "Why can't I just get it right? I feel like I'm losing her." Her reassurance echoed in his ear, reminding him that distance often thrives when emotions run high. Clara urged him to think about Sophia's feelings too, suggesting he find a way to express his love despite his busy days. As conversation flowed, James's mind began to shift. He considered how he took Sophia's presence for granted while fixing his work responsibilities. "I realize now that it's not just about me working hard. I have to be there for her," he said, an epiphany striking him. The thought of losing Sophia made his heart race with fear. He had built a future in his mind, but if they continued down this path of misunderstanding, he knew that future might vanish. Both Sophia and James sat amidst their reflections, feeling a strong pull of realization that the situation they faced was dire. Each notebook page filled, each phone call shared, their minds crowded with thoughts of remorse and understanding. They both dreaded the idea of losing each other. What they had needed was right in front of them, but stubbornness veiled their vision. Finishing her journaling, Sophia flipped the last page closed, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. "I can't just wait for this to fix itself," she whispered to herself, feeling a fire igniting within. She recognized that building a connection again would take effort from both of them. She couldn't let James's dedication go unnoticed any longer. She needed to open her heart to him. Across the room, James placed his phone down and clenched his fists momentarily. "I have to show her that I care," he promised himself. The idea of fighting through their struggles lifted his spirits slightly. They each felt the first hints of determination bubbling inside, motivating them to face the challenge ahead. If they truly wanted to keep what they cherished, it would take honesty and commitment. Both feeling overwhelmed with insights, they acknowledged their fears. But now, instead of feeling defeated, they dared to look forward to how love could weave its way back into their hearts. It was time to take the brave step toward healing and reconnecting, before their love became just a memory. The next morning dawned bright and clear, and a sense of urgency filled the air for both Sophia and James. Each partner woke, still reflecting on the night before and the early realizations that had surfaced. They understood now that ignoring their problems would only push them further apart. Everything felt different. The knowledge that they needed to reconnect became a gentle urge in their hearts. Sophia took a deep breath, her determination guiding her to James. She knocked softly on his door and waited, feeling both nervous and brave. When she finally saw him, she noticed the way he had looked the night before. He seemed tired, yet hopeful. "Can we talk?" she asked gently, her voice steady but kind. James nodded, a spark of relief lighting his eyes. Sitting across from each other in the living room, so many words hung in the air. Sophia could feel the tension still simmering, but instead of jumping into accusations or blame, she took a deep breath. "I want to start over," she said, her vulnerability shining through. "I realized I've been focusing too much on my feelings without understanding what you're going through. I'm truly sorry for how I reacted last night." James listened, his heart swelling with affection and understanding. "I'm sorry too. I shouldn't have yelled. I love you, and I got caught up in my work. I lost sight of us," he admitted, the guilt evident in his voice. Both of them felt the bond beginning to reshape, weaving strands of hope into a much-needed conversation. With a newfound commitment to change, they started to discuss ways to communicate better. "What if we set aside 20 minutes every evening to check in with each other?" Sophia offered, her eyes bright with possibilities. James agreed, seeing the plan as a perfect way for them to share their days without distractions. "It can be our own little time, no phones, no work. Just us." The simple idea transformed the weight on their shoulders into hope. They felt as if a forming bridge was being built right there in their living room. Sophia smiled, and James's heart warmed at her enthusiasm. They began discussing other steps they could take, excited about the new beginnings ahead. "I also think we should read a book about relationships, something that can guide us through these emotions," James suggested, his eagerness showing. "I love that idea. We can learn together," Sophia exclaimed, feeling energized by their deepening connection. Together, they pledged to take each needed step towards a stronger bond. Feeling the warmth of these changes, they both became conscious of external support as well. "Maybe we could talk to a counselor, just to see if we can grow even more," Sophia proposed tentatively. James nodded, appreciating her vulnerability. "That could really help us to navigate through this." "I want us to succeed," he replied. As they continued sharing their thoughts, a powerful shift occurred within both of them. At that moment, something clicked. They recognized how important their relationship was, not just for themselves but for each other. The swirling emotions of the past felt less daunting. They began looking at the incredible possibilities ahead instead. In sharing their vulnerabilities and realizations, both Sophia and James found themselves filled with combined love for one another. The commitment to take action wasn't just about avoiding loss, it sparked a desire to cultivate deeper understanding. They pledged that no matter the challenges they faced, their love would be worth the effort to fight for. This shared turning point not only solidified their bond but also rooted them in the belief that they could build a beautiful future together. In the weeks that followed their heartfelt conversation, Sophia and James set out to create a new path for their relationship. They began implementing the changes they had promised each other, eager to embrace the growth ahead. Each evening, they dedicated 20 minutes to talk, free from distractions. This time became a welcome break from their busy lives, a true moment to reconnect. During their first session, they sat across from each other on the couch, both excited yet slightly nervous. "Okay, what should we start with?" James asked, his tone a mix of enthusiasm and uncertainty. Sophia chewed her lip, the initial awkwardness hanging in the air. "Let's talk about our days, but also how we're feeling about us," she proposed. They both smiled, enthusiastically nodding as they took on this new challenge. They shared stories about their days, discussing work frustrations and teaching experiences. As they dove deep into their personal feelings, James struggled at times, his old habits creeping in. He found it difficult to fully express his emotions. "Sometimes, it feels hard to talk about how I'm feeling," he admitted, his brows furrowing in concentration. "But that's okay," Sophia encouraged gently, feeling proud of him for even voicing his struggle. "We can take our time. Just knowing you're trying means a lot to me." This simple acknowledgement warmed James's heart, allowing him to breathe easier. It reminded them both that the journey was about progress, not perfection. On a rainy afternoon, Sophia wanted to surprise James. She baked his favorite cookies and set them out with a note that read, "Just because." When James walked in, he was taken aback. "Sophia. This is so sweet." He looked at the cookies and then back at her with a twinkle in his eye. In that moment, he realized how much he had missed these little acts of love. But he also felt guilty for the times he hadn't reciprocated her efforts. "Thank you." "Really," he said, wrapping his arms around her. Sophia smiled, enjoying the warmth of his embrace. Yet she noticed the hesitation behind his eyes and wondered if he still wrestled with guilt. "James, it's important that we show love in different ways," she said softly, noticing how his smile faded slightly. "I know you're trying, but you don't always have to match my energy to show you care." That simple conversation made James reflect, creating a moment of vulnerability that began shifting their dynamic again. Another day, while working through their evening check-in, Sophia expressed feeling overwhelmed by the demands of her job. "Sometimes, I wish I could just drop everything," she confessed, her hands trembling slightly. "I feel pressured to be perfect." Seeing her struggle stirred something in James. He recalled feeling the same way about his job. "I know it's hard," he said, leaning closer. "Let's bear these burdens together." As they navigated their way through discussions, they discovered that sometimes the conversations began on shaky grounds, like stepping onto a tightrope. Both partners occasionally stumbled, sharing missteps and misunderstandings with careful honesty. Moments would crop up where their old habits almost whispered at them, urging them to retreat into their shells. However, what transformed those awkward exchanges into fruitful moments was their commitment to try again. Each stumble became less about failure and turned into a chance to learn, reminding them both that change was not an easy road, yet worth every bump along the way. They took the time to listen and adjust, learning to open themselves up fully year by year. These efforts, even when mixed with uncertainty, ignited a glimmer of hope that they could reclaim the love they had almost lost. Each small victory and transparent moment made them realize, piece by piece, that their story could turn into a beautiful narrative of growth and partnership. One crisp autumn evening, Sophia and James decided to take a walk to the local park. The leaves danced in shades of red and gold, creating a beautiful backdrop for their renewed relationship. As they strolled side by side, hand in hand, both felt a sense of tranquility washing over them. The tension that once filled the air slowly faded, replaced by a warm, comfortable silence and gentle laughter. "Do you remember our first date here?" Sophia asked, her eyes sparkling as she looked up at James. He nodded and laughed softly. "How could I forget? You tried to eat that ridiculously large ice cream cone, and it fell all over you." They shared a heartwarming laugh, the memory igniting a flicker of joy between them. As they reached a bench under a great oak tree, they sat down, and the warm evening air wrapped around them like a comforting blanket. Sophia took a moment, then decided to express something that had been weighing on her heart. "I feel like we're finally reconnecting, but I want to make sure this feeling lasts. I want us to grow and be stronger together." James took a deep breath, feeling the sincerity of her words deep in his heart. "You're right," he replied. "I've realized how important open communication is. I want to keep sharing our thoughts and feelings." A warm smile spread across Sophia's face, her heart swelling with love. They had created an emotional safety net where honesty and vulnerability felt welcomed. "What do you think makes us stronger now?" she asked, curious to explore their growth together. James paused for a moment, reflecting on the journey they had traveled. "I think it's about showing up for each other, even on hard days. We're both learning to listen and be vulnerable without fear," he shared. Excitement sparkled in Sophia's eyes as she embraced his words, feeling how both had shed old habits. As they spoke, the deeper understanding began to blanket the space between them with warmth. They talked about handling challenges differently and finding joy in shared experiences, considering taking dance classes together or exploring new hobbies. Their laughter filled the air, and memories of lighter moments began to erase the worries they once shared, shifting the focus to hopes for the future. A little later, as they sat surrounded by whispers of the evening breeze, James turned to her, his tone suddenly serious. "What if we had both acted sooner on our concerns?" he pondered, looking down at their entwined hands. "We wasted so much time feeling difficult emotions instead of talking it out." Sophia felt a rush of agreement. "I wish things hadn't come to such a breaking point, but I have to believe it helped us appreciate what we have now," she said, her voice soothing. The air felt electric, their connection now stronger than before. They exchanged ideas on how to manage conflicts effectively, hoping to avoid the shadows of their past misunderstandings. Having transformed tension into strength, Sophia felt a wave of peace. "I really believe we're on the right path now. I truly feel safe with you," she confessed, her eyes shimmering with emotion. James smiled back at her, pride swelling within him. "And I feel that we can be a team, no matter what life throws at us. This is our fresh start." With this newfound realization, the bond between them felt like a solid anchor. As night fell, stars began to twinkle above them, mirroring their renewed promises to embrace change together and nurture their love. They had come a long way, but it was this acknowledgement of vulnerability and strength that marked a true turning point. Hand in hand, ready to face the world again, they knew that together, they had laid the foundation for a love that could withstand any storm. As the months rolled on, Sophia and James consistently worked together on their relationship. They transformed their small daily check-ins into something deeper and more meaningful. Through honest communication, patience, and shared experiences, both partners found their rhythm, weaving their lives together like a beautiful tapestry. The emotional warmth that once felt lost now enveloped them, making each day brighter and more fulfilling. One evening, they found themselves at a cozy little cafe where they often spent time together. The air buzzed with chatter, but there was a sweet, intimate ambience just for them. Sophia looked over at James, who had a small notebook open on the table. When she leaned in to take a peek, she discovered sketches of ideas for activities they could explore together in the future. "How did you come up with this?" she asked, a mix of surprise and delight lighting her features. James grinned, happy to reveal his mini project. "I thought it would be fun to set new goals for us. Like taking a cooking class together or planning a hiking trip." His eyes sparkled with excitement. The moment reflected not just his creativity but also their dynamic as a couple who embraced new adventures together. Sophia felt a warmth spread through her as she listened. "I love those ideas. Maybe we can scatter them throughout the year. A new thing each month?" The idea filled her with a growing sense of hope, feeling confident that these experiences would help them maintain their connection even as their lives became busier. As their conversation flowed, Sophia brought up something that had once caused her anxiety. "I wanted to talk to you about work. Things have improved for me. I'm feeling more confident teaching," she said, a proud smile brightening her face. I even led a special art project with my class last week, and it went better than I expected." Her excitement radiated, illuminating the atmosphere around them. "That's amazing, Sophia," James praised, his voice filled with admiration. "I knew you could do it. You're a fantastic teacher." She felt a wave of love wash over her, recognizing how supportive and encouraging he had become. In return, James shared his own journey. "Work is still busy, but I realized how to balance my time better. Communicating with my team has become easier," he admitted while looking down thoughtfully. "And I feel proud owning my mistakes." It released a lot of pressure. Sophia's heart soared as she absorbed his words. They had turned the tides together, crafting a sense of balance in the chaos of life. Towards the end of their time at the cafe, Sophia suddenly reached across the table, took James's hands in her own, and squeezed tightly. "I just want to say that I appreciate you so much. You showed me how powerful open communication is, and I don't take that for granted," she said sincerely, her voice barely above a whisper. James squeezed her hands back, feeling the bond between them grow stronger. "I feel the same way. You opened my heart to the importance of vulnerability." In that moment, they shared a quiet understanding that they had both become better versions of themselves. Together, they had embraced the twists and turns that tested their love, learning and growing along the way. The weight of their past struggles felt lighter, replaced by hope for the future. Before leaving the cafe, James surprised Sophia with a small bouquet of flowers from a nearby stand. "For you," he said, his eyes sparkling with affection. Sophia accepted them, feeling a rush of warmth. This simple gesture symbolized not only his love but also the commitment they both felt to nurture their relationship continually. Walking hand in hand down the street, they smiled at each other, understanding that together they had crafted a new chapter filled with joy and promise. Their laughter filled the evening air, a testament to their growth as individuals and as a couple. Hope echoed between them softly, whispering that as they moved forward, their love would only flourish with time and effort. In that moment, they knew they were ready to face whatever came next, side by side, with confidence and a strong bond guiding the way.